what interfaces are, how they are helpful. Okay, we'll be doing that today, and we'll be seeing that how with Selenium you can use interfaces with different drivers. Okay, so I'll make a new package. Okay, call it day3. Fine, and let's go down on interfaces. Okay, look, the thing is, interface is something which gives you an idea about the system. Fine. For example, you go to a bookstore to buy a book. Okay, just by looking at the book cover, you come to know that what this book is about and whether it's for you or not. So that is the book. The first page of the book, the cover face of the book, is like an interface for you, which tells you that whether the book is for you or not. Fine. So interface is something which gives you an idea about the system. Okay. For example, you go on any website. Okay. You go to the official website of Selenium. So out here, this website is like an interface for you, which tells you that fine, what this tool is about. It automates browsers and all. Okay, but how it actually works and all, you don't have an idea. Fine, but this website gives you an idea that what it is going to do. So this website is like an interface to you. Fine. So interface is something which gives you an idea about the system. Fine. So similarly, you have interfaces in Java. Okay, you can create a new interface. Fine. And I can call that interface as say you can create an interface on anything. Fine. And maybe I can make an interface on say a generic thing like animal. Fine, I can make an interface like animal. Now what are the features of animal? Okay, so you can write over here public void walk. Fine, and public void sleep. So in interfaces you declare your functions. Fine, you don't need to write public, by default they are public. Okay, by default the functions in the interfaces are public. Public means you can access them anywhere. Okay, and so you can declare your functions. Okay, you cannot just give the body to the functions. You can just write down what the properties of an animal are. Right, so an animal can walk, it can sleep, it can eat. Okay, fine. So just by looking at this interface, one can come to know that fine, what an animal is supposed to do. Okay, so similarly you can have few classes which can implement this interface. Okay, what do you mean by implementing the interface? I'll tell you. Okay, so basically the thing is the interface, it gives you an idea about the system. Out here I'll create one more class known as say cat. So cat is an animal. Fine, and what we do is that we write over here this cat implements the animal interface. Okay, so if a class is implementing an interface, it is mandatory. Just a minute, my PC is hanging. I need to close few applications. Right. So over here this cat class is implementing the animal interface. Fine. And if a class is implementing an interface, then you have to implement all the functions of the class in the interface. Okay, right. So there's a question being asked that can we create the public class that will implement the interface, writing the interface within interface, implement the interface. No, we generally don't do it. As a beginner, I don't want to go into that. Okay, but just understand this, right? That you a class can implement the interface, but it's mandatory for the class to implement all the functions. That's why you are getting an error. If you move the mouse over the error, it will and select this, all the functions will come up over here: walk, sleep, and eat. Okay, in the walk function, you can simply write cat walking, cat sleeping, and cat eating. Okay, this override sign means that this function is coming from the animal interface. It's known as overriding, that the function is coming up from the interface. It's known as an annotation in Java. You can remove it as well, there is not a problem. But if you keep it, then if somebody looks at your code, he will come to know that this function is being overridden from animal class, that it is coming from the animal class. Okay, so these three functions over here, these three functions, they are coming from the animal class, and the cat has to implement these three functions. If I remove any one of them, I will get an error. Okay, you have to implement the functions, all the functions of the animal interface into the cat class. Right. Similarly, I can make a new class known as say fish. Fine. And which can implement animal class, animal interface. So you'll have to implement all the three functions. Right. Over here, fish moving you can write. Over here you can write. What is the advantage of this? Why are we doing this? Okay, I'm just coming over to it. Fine. So what I did was, basically what I did, I created one interface. Okay, there was one interface. Okay, this was the animal interface. It had functions, three functions, and there were two classes which went and implemented this interface. So if it implemented the interface, both the classes had to implement both the all the three functions inside them. But what did I achieve out of this? Okay, what is the advantage of interface? Fine. I could have decided not to make this interface. Why should I be making? I could have made simply two classes. Fine. Well, the advantages are there. Okay, you will soon come to know. The first advantage is that if more animal classes they come up, then they will also implement the same interface, and they will also have the same set of functions. Okay, so if a layman looks at your code, just by looking at the interface, he will come to know that what is there in the implementing classes. It becomes easier to comprehend the code. Okay, so it gives an idea about the system. Just by looking at it, it gives you an idea that fine, whichever classes will be implementing animal interface, it will be having these features. Okay, if you go to the Selenium website and go to the Selenium documentation, fine, if you look at the API docs over here, then whatever is there in italics is an interface. Okay, whatever is written in italics is an interface. For example, over here, mouse is an interface. It has the generic functions which represent basic mouse operations like clicking, context clicking, double clicking, mouse move, mouse down. Okay, so these are the mouse operations, and these are the two implementing classes. Okay, event firing mouse and remote mouse, they implement the interface mouse. So just by looking at this interface, you will come to know that fine, these are the two classes, and these two classes would be having these functions and all. Okay, similarly, everybody has heard the word WebDriver. WebDriver is basically an interface. It's the main interface which is used for testing, and it represents an idealized web browser. Okay, it's got functions in it which can help you to interact with the browser, like close function. Find element means go and find some element on the web page. Get function, this will load a new web page and a browser, okay, a website. And say get title will give you the title of the web page. Okay, so it's got few functions which can help you interact with the web page. And all my classes which we studied yesterday, okay, all these driver classes, they implement the WebDriver interface. Okay, so all these classes will have the same set of functions which are there in the interface. For example, if you want to load a URL, if you want to go to a website on any browser, the get is the function. Get function will help you load a URL in the browser. So all the driver classes will have this get function. So you really don't need to worry that how do I click a link in Chrome, or how do I click a link in Firefox or IE or Opera. Okay, the commands will be the same because the functions in the implementing classes are the same. Okay, if I just make a new class over here known as test animal and I create the object of the animal interface. First of all, I will get an error over here. You cannot create the object of interface in Java. It's illegal because it doesn't make any sense. Okay, you cannot create the object of an interface. Okay, you can create a reference. I can write animal A equals to null. Okay, A1 equals to null. You can create a reference, but you cannot create the object. How will the reference help us? I will tell you in some time. Fine. Now you can create the object of interface implementing classes. I can create the object of cat. I can create the object of fish. I can call the functions like cat dot eat, cat dot sleep, cat dot walk, and I can create the object of fish, fish dot eat, fish dot sleep, fish dot walk. The functions are same, but the names are same, but the objects on which they are called, they are varying. And if I run this, it's going to write these output. The first output is from the cat class, then the fish class. So similarly, like we have cat, fish implementing animal, we have these driver classes in Selenium implementing the WebDriver interface. They will also have the same set of functions. Okay, and it becomes easier to comprehend the situation, to understand the functions. Fine. Now suppose over here, fine, say cat class, it decides that fine, these are the three functions which are coming from the interface. Okay, but I have one more function which is actually my own proprietary function, like hunt. So this function is not coming from the interface, but it's actually there in the cat class. Okay, and it is a property of a cat. Fine. Right, so this is a property which is not there in every animal. Okay, so the cat class decides to have this function. So definitely we can call this function on the object over here. Fine. We can, just a minute. Yeah, we can call this function on the object over here, and when you run this, you see that it prints cat hunting. Fine. So you can have the proprietary functions also defined in the cat class. Okay. Now the thing is, how will interfaces actually help us? What are the advantages? The first advantage we saw was that the functions, they remain the same, the names remain the same. There is another advantage, okay, that is you can create a dynamic handle with interfaces. What do you mean by that? Suppose yesterday I made this program in which I created the objects of different driver classes. Fine. Suppose I have to make a class, I'll call it dynamic browsers. I have to make a class in which, suppose I define the variable that the browser is Chrome, and whatever script I am writing over here should be executed on Chrome. If I change this browser to I, then the script should run on I. I should not be changing the script. Only the change in this variable should actually make the script run based on that particular variable. Common sense says that fine, I can have if-else statements. I can write over here that if the browser is equal to Chrome, then I can create the object of ChromeDriver. Okay, else if the browser is equal to Mozilla. Then I can create the object of FirefoxDriver. This is what the common sense says, right? That you can create the objects based on the browser name. If it is I, then you can make object of Internet Explorer driver. Okay, now if you are creating a object over here for ChromeDriver, the reference is CD, FT and I. You have three different references over here. Okay, now if you want to take ChromeDriver to your website, okay, you write ChromeDriver.get HTTP bbc.com FirefoxDriver.get to HTTP bbc.com, right, and iDriver.get to, you can take these browsers, you can create the instances and take them to different websites. Okay, fine. Now if you, does this make sense? This is the problem. If I have to click on a link in ChromeDriver, I'll have to write a code here. If I have to click on a link in Firefox, I'll have to write the code here. In I'll have to write the code here. This doesn't make sense because for every browser I'm writing a different set of code, because for every browser I have a different handle. This is known as the reference or the handle. Now you can create dynamic references with interface and you can solve this problem. Okay, get function is there in all the browsers. Okay, all the browser drivers will have same set of functions, but still we have a problem over here that we have to repeat the code. Fine. So interfaces also help us over here. How do they help you? Right. Till now, understand how I had been creating the objects. I had been creating the objects with the reference of interface pointing towards the class, the class which is actually implementing the interface, the object of that particular class. Right now I'll create object in different way. I will write animal A1 equals to new cat. Okay, I'll just put a demarcating boundary, right, A2. Now there is a difference between this line and this line. Over here we have the interface reference which is pointing towards the object of implementing class. You can do this in Java, and what is the advantage of this and all, I'll come over to it. First of all, how this line is different than this line. With A2 you can access all the functions in the cat class which are coming from the animal interface, not the proprietary functions. You can call A2.eat, you can call A2.sleep, A2.walk, A2.hunt. Hunt cannot be called, it will throw you an error. Only those functions which are from the animal interface and coming into the class can be called, not the proprietary one. What is the advantage of this then? How will this help you? Okay, look, this is very helpful because you have this A2 reference of the interface. It can point towards the object of the implementing class. I can also write, say, animal A3 is equal to new fish. So if I write a3.fish, a3.eat, and if I just run this, you will see that these three are actually printing this output, and this a3.eat is printing fish eating, because a3 is pointing towards the fish object. But based on my choice, I can decide a3 to point towards the cat object as well. Same reference. Okay, a3 was pointing towards fish. Now I am pointing a3 towards cat, and I can write the same command. These two commands are same, but the output will be different. Okay, you see that fish eating and cat eating. Understand this carefully. Many times people they get confused over here. Okay, that is one reference of the animal class can point towards different implementing classes. This is one reference. Now it is pointing towards fish, and then it is pointing towards cat. I can declare like this, say animal a4 equals to null. Null means I am not sure where it is. It's not pointing anywhere. Based on my choice, I can make it point towards the object of cat class, or I can make it point towards object of fish class. It's my choice. But when it is pointing towards object of cat class, then all the functions from the interface which are there in the cat can be called. And when it is pointing towards the fish object, then the functions from the fish class will be called. Okay, so if you run this, you see that cat sleeping comes up from this line, and fish sleeping comes up from this particular line number 34. Okay, right. What is the purpose of line number 30? If you don't declare it, you will get an error. There is a question being asked that what is the purpose of line 30? Even if we don't write it, the code should execute. It won't. You have to declare. If I am not declaring my variable, if I write int I equals to 0, on the next line I write I equals to 100. Okay, on the next line I can make I changed to 200. This is same like something like this only. At least I have to declare my I, right? Okay, otherwise it will show me error that I is not existing. Fine, this situation is similar. I am not saying that it is the same thing. It is similar to this, that you declare a variable, you can change the values in it. Similarly, you declare a reference and you can point it towards different objects. Okay, the objects of the implementing class. Okay, any class which is implementing the animal interface. Okay, now what is the purpose of doing this? There's another question being asked. The purpose is very simple. Till now, we have created the objects of our drivers like this. ChromeDriver driver equals to new. Okay, or we have created the object of FirefoxDriver. like this. We know right now that the interface is WebDriver and all these are implementing classes. So we can create the objects with the WebDriver reference. I can write WebDriver D1 equals to new ChromeDriver. Okay, I am creating the object differently over here. I am giving the reference of the interface pointing towards the class which is implementing the interface. Okay, this line is equivalent to this line. Alright. Okay, or I can also write say WebDriver D2 equals to new FirefoxDriver. But there is a twist over here. On the next line, I can make D2 point towards object of ChromeDriver, which I cannot do over here. Out here, I cannot write FD equals to new ChromeDriver. It will throw me an error because FD is a reference of the not of an interface, it's the reference of the class. You cannot do this. But over here I can make D2 point towards ChromeDriver or FirefoxDriver based on my choice. Okay, I can declare my WebDriver interface reference to be null. Based on my choice, I can make driver point towards ChromeDriver, or I can make driver point towards FirefoxDriver. Dynamically, you can have one driver point towards objects of different implementing classes. Okay, one driver reference can point towards objects of different implementing classes. This is really interesting. Okay, right, and this will solve the problem of browsers over here. Over here we had been creating individual objects, so we won't do this anymore. Alright, and we will declare our WebDriver driver as null over here. Based on what the browser type I want to work with, I can initialize my driver. Basically, initialize the driver means I will open that browser. Okay. Right, if I run this code, you will see that right now I will open. If I change this to Chrome and I run the browser, this will make Chrome open. So I can make one reference point towards different browsers. Okay, on the next line over here you can write driver dot get. Go to the website http cnn.com suppose. Once your browser is initialized, you can call the functions on the driver. The functions will be same. Okay, all the implementing classes have same set of functions. Right, you can get the title of the website. No matter which browser you are opening, no matter which browser driver you are initializing, all the drivers will have same set of functions because all the drivers they implement the same interface. Are you getting my point right now? That what was the exact purpose of interfaces? There are two purposes. The first purpose is that you can have same set of functions in all the browsers. The second is that you can create a reference of an interface, point it directly to the implementing classes and dynamically as well. Okay, so if I run the code now, you will see that a Chrome browser will open and will take you to cnn.com and print the title of the web page. If you are not able to understand this, you can let me know. Okay, right. If I close this, you see that? Okay. Now, this will be used in the project. In the framework which we work, this thing will be used. Because when we make a project, we want the project to work dynamically on different browsers. Okay, so this will be used a lot. Yes.
What's the difference between declaring the object of the interface in line 12 or putting it in line 9?
There's no difference, but out here it will throw you an error. If I declare it over here, that is global, this is not static. The function is static. Static cannot access non-static, I told you, right? So if I'll have to declare it static, the only this is the difference. Okay.
But it has a benefit from being global.
Yes, because I can access it in main function. Apart from it, if I have any other static function, I can make a static function like public static void navigate. Fine. Suppose in this function I write these two lines and I can call this navigate function from here. So the advantage is that the driver is accessible in all the functions. In both these functions, my driver is accessible because the driver is global. Okay, so this is the advantage. Okay.
What's the benefit of having the non-static accessing the static makes it both ways easier to execute the code?
Yes, that's also the thing, but generally we don't access the static things from the objects. We access it with the class name. Okay, but in Selenium you should, when you are writing your scripts and building the frameworks, you should not build your driver static. You should never keep this static. I'll tell you the reason later on. Okay, you right now you will not be able to understand it. It gives an issue in the parallel execution of the test cases. Okay, I'll tell you later on. Okay,
So
so
your recommendation is to put it within the main method?
no, later on we will do. Right now as a learner you can keep it in the main function. Later on we'll move it over here as non-static and I'll tell you how to do that. Okay, yeah. So now this is done. This is the interface and this is how they help us. Okay, when you practice it yourself, when you write the code yourself, you will actually come to know that what it does. Fine. The next thing is basically, you know, just a minute. You need to understand constructors before we move ahead. Okay, we have to understand constructors in Java language, that how they are helpful to us. Fine. I will make a new package or a new class itself. Fine. And I'll just name it, say, you can call it anything like table. Fine. So this is a table, a regular table which you use. Okay. Now out here there are few properties of the table: the weight of the table, the height of the table, okay, the wood with which the table is made. So these are the three properties of the table object. Okay, and all of these three are non-static. That means you can create the object of this table class and access them. Fine. If I go over here in test animal function, or I'll just create a new class known as test table. If I create the object of the table class, and I initialize it, table dot wood is, say, pine, t1 dot height is 100, t1 dot weight is 200. Okay, for one object I have to write 3 lines to initialize the parameters of the object. Okay, similarly, if I create the object like this, t2 equals to new table, okay, t2 dot wood is, say, it's made from coconut wood, and t2 dot height is 200, t2 dot weight is 300. So one object you are writing 3 lines of codes to initialize it. What if you have to create 100 objects? With every object you will have to write 3 lines to initialize the object. And these are just 3 properties over here. What if you have got 30, or even 10 properties for this table? Okay, then it will become tough to initialize every object. You will have to write 10 different lines to initialize every parameter of the object. So over here we have constructors. Constructors help us to solve this problem, that is, you can dynamically initialize the objects. Okay, right. How do we do that? In the table class, I'll make a constructor, public table. It looks something like function, but it's not a function. There is no return type. The name of the constructor is same as the name of the class. A constructor is called when you create the object of the class. Okay, I will just write over here inside constructor, and I will run this code over here. When you run this code, you will see that it prints inside constructor 2 times. If you are printing inside constructor 2 times over here, that means this constructor is being called 2 times, and it is called when you create the object of the class. If I create more objects of the class like this, just hanging objects in the memory, and if I run this, you will see that this is called. So a constructor is basically called when you create the object of the class. and it helps you to initialize the object. Okay, so it is called when you create object of the class, and it helps to initialize the object properties. Now, how does it help you to initialize the object properties? Okay, I will create one more constructor over here, public table, which accepts three parameters: the weight, the height, and the wood with which the you can say the object is made, the table is made, right? So over here it's throwing an error. Okay, wood, fine. So over here you can initialize the object. You can write that the weight of the object is equal to W, the height is H, and the wood is WD. So when you create the object of the table class now, okay, you can directly write like this: table T3, okay, table T3 equals to, just a minute, new table, and you can pass over the three parameters weight, height, and wood over here: 300, 400, and say mango wood. So you have the T3 object reference created, and while creating the object only, you are passing the parameters separated by comma inside the constructor. This will call this particular constructor, okay, which is having these three input parameters. Okay, so when you run this code, you will have T3 initialized. You can write over here system.out.println T3 dot, say I will print wood. So when you run this, it will print mango wood, right? So the advantage is that on the fly you can initialize the object as well. Okay, and this thing, you can have multiple constructors in a class. I can also have a constructor which just takes in the weight. Okay, it initializes just the weight, not the height or the wood with which the table is made. This is known as overloading. That is, you can have one name and you can have different input parameters. Okay, the default constructor will be called in case you are just creating the object like this, and you can call the other overloaded constructors as well. Okay, now at times, you can write over here wood, just a minute, I have renamed these local variables same as my global variables, and I write weight, height, wood. Basically, by writing over here, I mean to say, what I am trying to do is that this is my global variable and this is my local variable. I am trying to equate the global variable to the local variable, but the names are same. Okay, if I just run this, t3.wood will print null. it is printing null. This is because you have sometimes, most of the times you declare the variable names same. The local variables names are same as the global variables. So it is trying to equate the local variable to local variable itself. It's not reading the global variable over here. That's why it is printing null. So what we do is that to solve this problem, we use the keyword this. This keyword represents the global variable, the current object basically. The weight of the current object, that means the global variable. Okay, equated to the weight variable which is local. Okay, this means basically the global variable, the object property. Now if you run this will print mango wood. Okay, so this keyword is really important. We will be using it. It represents the current object. Okay, fine. And as things proceed, you will get a clear idea on how this keyword works. Okay, so basically what we did today, we talked about interfaces, what they are. They are something which gives you an idea about the system, and we saw how an interface can be used to dynamically open the browser as well. Fine. And you can open different types of browsers. And we also saw that how constructors are used. You can have default constructor. This is known as a default constructor, which is having no argument. You can have overloaded forms of constructors. You can call them. And we also saw the this keyword. Fine. So we'll stop here for today. Tomorrow we will go with object identification, that once you have reached the website in Selenium, then how will you go and use the elements in the website? How will you interact with the elements on the website? Okay. Tomorrow we don't have a class. We have a class on Monday morning Indian time, which will be Sunday evening US time. Okay, right? I will send you the recordings and all everything. People who have enrolled into the training, when you log in into your account, you will see a batch recordings option on the left side. The recordings will be put up in your batch recordings as well. Okay, even after the trial classes, you can refer the batch recordings. Alright. Right now you won't be able to see anything, but in few hours the videos will come in your batch recordings. After you log in into your account, you will see them. Okay.